JOYCE, Realm Book 1. NEO-AFRO Audio presents JOYCE, Realm Book 1, written by Kofi Osei Owusu, narrated by Faith Akonwo. Prologue. She always thought she was better than me. This was the thought that ran through Auntie Grace's mind as she waited for the man she was supposed to meet. She looked at the city in the distance. Her brother always loved London. Remembering her brother brought back such loss, and that pain, if she let it, would swallow her whole. But he's gone. He had been dead for years, and the person she blamed was her sister-in-law, Joyce's mother. Except that which died with him in the car crash in Nigeria. She always looked down at me. I should not have allowed my brother to marry that witch. She became his downfall, and now I'm stuck with two of her children, she reflected bitterly. As she pondered on the past, she noticed a black car silently slowing to a halt, yards away. She recognized the vehicle, so she got up and walked towards it. Auntie Grace didn't know what the car's make and model was, but she knew it was expensive. The car she had was a 12-year-old Ford Focus. It was a piece of shit. It broke down all the time, and it was starting to cost more to fix than it was worth. She had never owned a brand new car like that. Maybe now was her time. A good-looking, well-groomed man stepped out of the car. She only knew his first name, Godfrey. She smiled at him. She led him to a bench under a tree. They sat down. She kept looking at him. "So, where is the money?" Auntie Grace asked Godfrey. "I have to make sure you're who you say you are first. Where is she?" he asked with a straight face. "She'll be closing from work very soon," she replied with a sly smile. She looked up in the sky. The clouds were becoming gray. "I don't want trouble." "Have you got what I came for?" said Auntie Grace. "Are you sure she will comply?" he asked, fondling the silver ring in the index finger of his right hand with the thumb of that same hand. "She will comply, because I've always set her up with men. I told her that I'm looking for a husband for her. If you have any trouble, just threaten to hurt her younger brother. She's close to him. She will be compliant by the end of the evening," she assured him. "Don't worry, Godfrey. I will make sure no one looks for her." "Do I look worried?" Godfrey looked at her steadily. "Just make sure you do your part and things will go well for you. You know my people want girls who look good. Our clients want girls like that." She frowned, but only for a second. "You will not be disappointed. Now show me the money, or I'm going," she told him with a sudden serious face. He observed her for a moment before walking back to his car, opened the passenger door, and pulled out a small black leather bag. She watched as he marched back to the bench. "She's just like her mother. She thinks she's better than me. I will show her," Auntie Grace said with a bitter sneer on her face. He placed the bag on the bench, looked at Auntie. "So you're only doing this for spite?" "No, this is business, Godfrey." He smirked at her words, then he unzipped the bag. The bag was stuffed with cash. She looked at the money with wide eyes, smiled to herself. "This will do nicely. I will have to test if she's fit for the job, so I hope you know I'll take her by force if she refuses. I'll have to discipline her," he warned Auntie Grace, but she couldn't care less. "Godfrey, do whatever you need to do to her. She will comply." He passed the bag to her. She smiled even broader. Then she grabbed his hand. "One more thing. Do not take the necklace I gave her off, or there will be trouble," she warned him. She walked away to her car, which was parked a couple of streets away. He watched her go, then entered his car. "Wow, she's a piece of work," he thought to himself. Chapter 1. In northwest London, on Housden High Street, near the clock tower, a traffic light stands. A man stands near, taking a photograph of a QR code sticker stuck on the traffic light pole using his smartphone. The phone links to a site with a code on it. The man pockets his phone, walks to his car, and drives away. It was a beautiful evening. The stars shone in the dark skies, with grey clouds partly covering them. It was a great day for Joyce, a 22-year-old woman. She had just finished for the day from her legal secretary job. She had finally made enough money to move out of her Auntie Grace's house. The thought alone brought a happy smile to her face. She got into the car, turned the ignition on, and took off her heels. She sat there for a minute, rubbing her feet. It felt so good taking them off after wearing them all day. She slipped on her car shoes and sat back. She touched her necklace, playing with it for a short while. Suddenly, she had a flash of a man's face in her mind. She blinked and it was gone. These flashes were getting more and more frequent, but she didn't recognize the face. She shrugged and put it to the back of her mind. The flashes were annoying, but there was nothing she could do. She turned on the radio. Where's the Love by Donny Hathaway and Roberta Flack was playing. She loved that song. Donny Hathaway had always been her escape from this world when her aunt was shouting or mistreating her. She moved to the music until her phone rang. She looked at the phone and turned off the radio. It was her aunt calling. This shattered her happy mood in an instant. She didn't answer and looked at the time, which was 8:15 p.m. Oh shit, I totally forgot and I'm late, she thought to herself. The phone rang again. She took a moment to gather her courage. Then she answered the call. Auntie, Joyce forced herself to say. Have you finished your work yet? Joyce heard her auntie ask from the other side of the phone. Yes, Auntie Grace. Good. He called me a few minutes ago. He is waiting at the hotel for you to show up. I do not have to remind you that you have to be on time. I have sent you the address, Auntie Grace said with authority. Auntie Grace was always trying to force her onto men, saying that it was time she got married and as her auntie, it was her duty to find her a man. But all the guys Auntie Grace set her up with were really creepy. They just wanted to sleep with her. Also, Joyce had the sneaky suspicion that Auntie Grace was charging those men. Joyce was sick and tired of this. She just wanted to be left alone, especially now that she had left home. Joyce had a really bad feeling about this in the pit of her stomach. Usually, her aunt would arrange meetings in restaurants, and that was bad enough. But now, a hotel? No, no, no. Enough is enough. This has got to stop. Auntie, I'm not sure I want to do this anymore. I don't feel good about this. I just finished work and I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. Joyce lamented boldly, but she knew this would not sit well with her auntie. Auntie Grace was silent on the call. Joyce looked at her phone only to see that the call was active. Then why wasn't she responding? Joyce thought. She might be in big trouble, but she was fed up. Joyce, I have tried to put up with your nonsense. Auntie Grace was angry and Joyce could hear it in her voice. I will not tolerate it anymore. How many times have I told you not to disobey me, huh? You are so ungrateful. Since your parents died, have I not taken care of you and your brother? Do you know how expensive that is? But Auntie Grace, said Joyce. Don't talk when I'm talking to you, Joyce. Do you know what I have had to go through before getting you this nice, handsome, rich man? Auntie Grace said furiously. That's what you said about the other three, Auntie Grace. I just want this to end, Joyce said in frustration. Oh, shut up, retorted Auntie Grace. I'm tired of this. I won't do this anymore, continued Joyce. Why don't you let your daughter, Cece, do it? Why is it always me? Am I the one you are talking to? Auntie Grace asked in shock. I'm very grateful for you taking care of us, my brother and I, but you never treated us like your children. You mistreated us, me in particular. Now you want to sell me to rich men? I'm not doing this. Joyce had made up her mind and nothing would change it. It felt good finally being able to stand up to Auntie Grace. Auntie Grace won't back her to the wall again. She is old enough to make her own decisions. Joyce, do you know who you are talking to? Auntie Grace asked, the shock still in her voice. You will do this, or by God you will regret it. Mark my words, You may be old enough to leave, but remember, your brother is still with me. You take care of him, but I'm his legal guardian, and he stays under my roof. I can make his life a living hell. It's up to you." Her brother. How could she have forgotten her younger brother who still stayed with Auntie Grace? Her only real family and the only person that made her happy. But why was Auntie Grace doing this? All these thoughts went through Joyce's head as she waited to find the courage to speak to her auntie. "Behave yourself, or he will suffer because of your stupid behavior," Joyce heard Auntie Grace saying. "Now, are you going to meet him?" Joyce couldn't take this anymore. Why would someone who calls herself family do this to her? The night went silent around her. Tears ran down her face, but there is no way she would let her auntie know she's crying. "Joyce, I'm talking to you. Answer me," Auntie Grace shouted. "Yes, Auntie Grace," Joyce said sadly. "What?" "Yes, Auntie Grace. I'm on my way to the hotel." "Good. You better be nice to this one, or you and your brother will be sorry." Auntie Grace ended the call suddenly. Joyce gently wiped the tears from her face, messing up her makeup. She reached into the glove compartment, pulled out her makeup bag, and reapplied it. Something fell out of the glove compartment. She picked it up. It was a picture of herself and her little brother. They are smiling in the photograph. A happy moment. She could remember that day when the picture was taken. Chapter 2. At the hotel, Joyce parked her car at the front. The clouds were totally covering the stars at this point. Joyce stepped out of her old car with a handbag. She took out her handkerchief and dabbed the emerging tears at the corners of her eyes. She changed her posture, tried to look a bit cheerful. "This will all be over soon," she assured herself. Then she walked into the hotel. She approached the receptionist who was holding a photograph. "Miss Joyce?" the receptionist asked. "Yes," Joyce replied. Joyce was confused. "How do you know me?" Joyce asked the smartly dressed man. "I was supplied with a photo by your host, madam," he responded. "Please, follow me," he said as he walked ahead. The receptionist led her through the corridor, up the stairs to a door. She watched as the receptionist knocked on the door. They waited for a few seconds before the door opened. Then Godfrey stepped out, wearing a dark African-style suit. Joyce observed him. He was a little taller than her, with smooth, dark brown skin. He looked like he had just left the barber's. His grooming was impeccable and he smelled really good. "Is this the man I'm supposed to meet?" Joyce wondered. Godfrey stepped back and opened the door wide enough for her to enter. Godfrey led her into the bedroom. Everything was perfect and romantic. She could smell a sweet scent of flowers everywhere. Yellow lights shone dimly. She watched as he sat on the bed. "Care to join me?" he asked politely. She looked at him, then at the bed. She forced herself to move closer. "God help me," she begged in her mind as she took a deep breath. She sat on the bed while he observed her. "Wow, I'm impressed," he said with a proud smile. "You're beautiful. I suppose she told you everything." "Only in parts," Joyce replied, uncertain. He smirked, gazing at her as if her beauty was something he couldn't take his eyes off. "I'm not disappointed," Godfrey started saying. "You look exactly like the pictures she showed me." She looked at the window, then at the door, looking for an escape route, but she couldn't bring herself to get up. "Maybe if I tell him, he would understand like the others," she thought desperately. She gathered the courage to look at him. "Please, whatever she told you to do to me, I can't. I'm not ready," Joyce forced herself to tell him with panic rising in her chest. He didn't reply for a moment, thinking with a small smile on his face. "I'm sorry," Joyce told him boldly. "My auntie may have given you the wrong impression, but I am a woman and I have pride. You can't expect me to sleep with you like a prostitute." The panic was quickly turning into anger. He laughed at this, Then he stood. I knew you would say that. He moved to an envelope placed on a table on the far end of the room. She watched him open it, took a picture from it. But I have paid a lot of money just to see you, and I didn't fly all the way here just to hear sorry. Or what are you saying? He informed her while he walked back to the bed. I can't, Joyce repeated, trying to make her voice sound strong as she shook with a mixture of fear and anger. Well, I don't care. I have pride too, and lots of money which your auntie took just for me to meet you, and I won't let all the money I spent just slide. Now, if you know what's best for you, you will do as I say. He passed the picture to her. She looked at the picture only to realize it's a picture of her little brother. I have my people around your auntie's house right now. I know you care for him more than anything. You'll do anything for him. So if you want to keep him protected, you'll do as I say, he demanded. Joyce looked at him, tears in her eyes at this point. I have no choice, she told herself. Then she stood and started undressing. First, she placed her handbag on the desk beside the bed. Then she starts to undo the buttons of her blouse. He watched her for a second, then seemed to come to a decision. Okay, sister, that's far enough. Joyce's hand stopped as she held her breath. Sorry to put you through that, but I had to make sure. Please dress yourself. What's going on? Her mind was in turmoil. Your brother is safe, but there's not much time, he said as his facial expression changed to serious and he started looking around the room. Just then, she heard a bang on the closed bathroom door and a muffled sound. She narrowed her eyes with suspicion as she looked at Godfrey for an answer. What's in there? She demanded. I don't have time to explain, he muttered distractedly as he looked around the room. She heard the bang again. She immediately moved to the bathroom door and opened it. He didn't stop her. What she saw in the closet shocked her to the very core. It was the man in her vision, but he was bound and gagged. His eyes were wide and he was trying to shout. Her head was spinning. She turned to Godfrey for answers. Who is this? She asked, not knowing whether she wanted to know the answer to the question or not. What had Auntie Grace got her mixed up with now, she thought to herself. Godfrey took a deep breath and looked at the person gagged inside the closet. He's a very bad man. His name is Godfrey Fraser. He bought you from your auntie earlier today, and he was planning to rape, beat, and kidnap you. He's part of an organization who buy young girls for sex trafficking, he informed her in a matter-of-fact way. Still in shock, she looked at the person in the closet, then back at Godfrey. Then who are you? Instantly, he got to his feet, narrowed his eyes and listened. They are here, he told her as he ran to grab the envelope. Almost immediately, she heard heavy hands banging on the door. That's Mr. Fraser's goons. They are here for you. Let's go, he told her as he pocketed the envelope. She wouldn't take a step to follow him. What if he's the bad guy? She warned herself. Who are you, really? She asked him one last time. My name is Abiel. I was sent by members of your family to get you out of here, he replied. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out a necklace and showed it to her. She looked at it. It was identical to the one around her neck. She wasn't convinced. But you were about to rape me yourself, she said suspiciously. The banging on the door grew louder. I would never do that. I had to make sure you would do anything to protect your brother, he replied in all honesty. He realized that the door was about to give. It's now or never. Look, we have to move. Are you coming or not? As she moved towards him, she whispers anxiously, How are we getting out of here? Stand behind me, he told her. Then he pulled out a device from his other pocket, presses it and speaks to it in a language Joyce did not recognize. The device responds in the same language. This exchange goes on for a few seconds while the pounding of the door gets louder. Suddenly, a white beam shoots out of the device and spreads into a large white rectangle about a meter in front of Abiel. Joyce's eyes grew wide as this happens. What is that? as a mixture of fear and excitement flushes through her. "Hurry," he said as he grabbed her hand and then quickly walked through the portal. The portal collapses at the moment the door opens. The goons step into the room, with only Mr. Fraser trying to break free from his bonds. We hope you have enjoyed this unabridged production of Joyce, Realm Book 1, written by Kofi Osei-Owusu and narrated by Faith Akonwo. Literary copyright by NEO-AFRO Publishing. Production copyright by NEO-AFRO Production. All rights reserved.